everybody. Welcome to Geography and Environmental Studies 465, Sustainability and Sustainable Development. I am Dr. Catherine King. I go by Casey. And I would like to just give you a brief introduction to the course today so that you can get started. It is an asynchronous course, so a lot of the work you'll be doing is independent, but I want to show you how to navigate the Blackboard site and just get you used to watching some introductory videos every week to get you started on some of your more independent work. So what I'm going to do here is first give you a general idea of what the course is about, and then get into some of the logistics. So what is the course workload, the course format and schedule, some of the policies, the skills you hopefully will have by the time you leave this class, and what is actually due for your assignment this week. So most of you have some general idea of the concept of sustainability. I know that you are all coming from different backgrounds and different disciplines and have studied many different things over the past 4 years. But I do have to say that almost every area of study is now connected to the concept of sustainability, and most of the jobs you are working and the relationships you're in with your family, friends, and loved ones really contain aspects of sustainability, of caring for each other, caring for the planet so that we can continue to have livable lives. So I just wanted to show you this brief introduction that's coming from a paper you're going to read this week, and have you start to realize that, you know, even at the very beginning of kind of this formation of the definition for the concept of sustainable development and sustainability, not everybody has the same idea of what this word means. And so you're going to read a little bit about the history of this in the Wheeler paper that is assigned for this week. But really, you know, this is the most common definition that you'll see. Sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. This one comes from the very classic paper put out by the Brundtland Commission in 1987, but different groups, from people who focus on ecosystems to people who look at it more in an economics perspective of natural capital, to people who look at human systems and think of sustainability as not making things worse, or from a labor perspective, to sustain the livelihoods of people who depend on ecosystems being replenished and not being degraded, to people who kind of focus on stewardship and protection and preservation and conservation, to people who are concerned about the exponential growth of human needs as our population grows and as our use and consumerism is increased. And, you know, this last one here kind of takes quite a few things into perspective on the requirements that it really takes to have a society that's functioning and quote unquote sustainable. And so you'll get a sense out of the papers you're reading this week that this kind of classic view of sustainability looks for a balance between our social life, our economic life, and in our environmental life, and calls something sustainable that meets that sweet spot of where things are environmentally viable, economically equitable, and socially bearable. And this concept has often been tied to the concept of development, which looks for economic growth and sees economic growth as a way for people to get out of poverty and to increase the ability to have environmental protections and conservation. And what you're going to see is that over the past several decades, since the concept of sustainability and sustainable development have been kind of agreed upon by international groups and scholars and politicians and practitioners, we've sort of moved from the development concept kind of taking over the idea. So a real focus on growth in the economy, without really destroying society or ecology, to a more ecological perspective, where healthy ecology is really the over containing circle of society and the economy. And so we'll talk a lot about that in our lecture next week. And you'll have a chance to read a little bit about in the papers that you're reading this week. But I just want to point out some of these terms that I've listed over here, things that we'll talk about this semester. Oh, sorry about that. That have really come a long way from these definitions in the late 80s and early 90s. So new ideas associated with sustainability, and some of you who are in the geography or environmental studies backgrounds might recognize some of them. We have the concepts of system science and resilience and vulnerability. You know, this one is used heavily in sustainability science these days, but these are concepts that are used in psychology, for example. Concepts of mitigation, adaptation, and transformation, which come from urban planning and city planning, sustainable communities, participatory democracy, sustainable livelihoods. These are all ideas that bring in the social sciences as an important aspect of sustainability, and ecosystems-based management, looking at ecologists trying to get people to think about our natural resources in a much different way than we always have, in terms of just making sure we have enough to supply the human population. And some of these other ideas like indigenous ecological wisdom, social justice, just sustainabilities, and environmental justice, the concept of well-being. All of these things are researched and are being included in new definitions of sustainability. So we sort of have our work cut out for us. We're starting with this baseline definition from the original Brundtland Commission in 1987, but we're going to take this whole course to explore all the ways that this idea has morphed, often for better, sometimes for worse. And that is kind of a general explanation in about 3 or 4 minutes of what we're going to be doing this semester in this class. So I divided the course up into 5 major themes, and you'll see this in the syllabus. We're going to start out, and it starts out a little intense with just kind of looking at some of the basic paradigms, institutions of sustainability, and kind of getting into some of the critiques and contentions of the concepts of sustainability and sustainable development. And then we're going to move right into 3 major areas where sustainability research and sustainability practice is critical. So climate change, which includes energy and sustainable communities. So urban sustainability is part of this sustainable communities. Then we'll move into food systems and agriculture. And as part of this, we'll examine issues of water sustainability. And finally, to give you a little bit of a background that in coastal and marine sustainability, we'll talk about ecosystems management and ocean planning. And this theme 4 is particularly close to my heart because I work, my research is on ecosystems-based management in fisheries in the United States. I am presently a geographer and a part-time environmental sociologist, although I do come from a science background and worked for many years in environmental geophysics. But I think being on the coast, you should enjoy actually kind of thinking of sustainability specifically in terms of the ocean. And then finally, the last part of the class is a lot of independent work where you will present some of the work that you're doing based on some of these ideas we've discussed in class. And the final weeks will tie everything together. So as you look through the syllabus, you can kind of see where I've highlighted these separate themes. And we will every week be moving through these at a pretty swift pace. It's a class that has a lot to bring to the table and a lot to talk about. So it's difficult to try to choose what to speak to you about. And I think that's why what we'll do is actually have everyone find their own connection to the topic of sustainability and sustainable development. And you'll have a chance to present to each other what you understand about this concept. So Before we move on into the logistics of the course, I wanted to say that I recognize that not everybody in this class is coming from a science background or a social science background, or has had any training in concepts of geography or environmental studies. And so, we'll talk about how to do the reading. Some of them might be a little bit hard because they're not in your field. But I wanted to say that really, it's such an important concept, that the concepts are very critical to your understanding of the course, but really the skills you get out of this class, no matter where you're coming from or what your background is, will help you in everything you're doing. So we're going to practice close reading of theoretical material and improving your reading comprehension. We're going to get you into a regular weekly writing practice. We'll see that some of the topics that you may be slightly familiar with, like climate change or water shortages or increased extreme weather events and fire, you may be slightly familiar with them or maybe very familiar, and we'll look at them from new and challenging perspectives. We're going to work on using empirical evidence and theoretical understanding to develop and articulate understanding of complex topics. You'll be developing a research topic and finding and assessing resources. We're going to start to get a little critical here. And by critical, I mean we're going to question the dominant narratives of sustainability and think about how sustainability plays into relations of power between countries, between people, and institutions. And we're going to identify strategies for contesting unjust and harmful abuses of power in the name of sustainability. We'll be tying together and building on ideas from within this course, but also other courses that you're taking, and other previous courses and all of your interests. This really shows up towards the end of the semester as everybody brings a topic to the table that we don't have time to discuss in the class. And finally, you'll be developing research and critical thinking skills needed for participation in a democracy. And that includes not just in voting, not just voting, but in leadership roles and really engaging in this rapidly changing and globally connected world. And so that's my hope for you by the end of the semester through this course. And I know we can do it. So one of the things about an asynchronous course is that the workload can be a little bit difficult to judge because you're not sitting in a classroom. And so a lot of that time, while I will do some lecturing, I'm definitely not going to lecture for several hours a week. I'm just going to kind of present introductions and some conclusory or explanatory talks about some of the things you're reading. But the way you can think about it is if you have 4 credits, it's about 10 hours of work per week. So usually you have 4 credit hours at 50 minutes per hour equals about 200 minutes, or 3 hours and 20 minutes. Homework is usually about 2 times the class time, so say 6 hours and 40 minutes. You add that up and you will get about 10 hours of focus time that's needed for the coursework every week. So my suggestion is try to find 4 hours every week that you know you will work on this class. If you end up having some difficulty with the readings, my suggestion to you is set a time limit on how long you work at each of these readings. There's no need for you to clearly, absolutely comprehend every reading every time before you have the opportunity to listen to my short lectures on the readings and also to ask me questions. And the more that we can get understanding out of it through the lectures and through communications with me, the less you have to worry about really understanding each of these articles the first time around. They're not freshman level readings. And so, but I also don't want you spending too much time trying to understand everything so closely that you get bogged down. So that's, I would say, course load. Do expect a decent amount of work for a 4-unit course at a senior level, but know that if you need to, you can put time limits on your readings and stick to that, and know that you will be supported to understand the readings in other ways than just doing it on your own. Okay, so probably the easiest way to talk to you about the course itself and the course format is to take a look at the Blackboard site. So let's see here. Okay, so this is the Blackboard site. The announcements say to go over and take a look at the syllabus tab. And this is how it'll work every week. I'll have some kind of announcement, and then you can click over to the syllabus. And you'll see that on the course page for the syllabus, there is a course semester-long syllabus here. This will likely change. The readings will change a little bit during the semester as new things are published, as I get a feel for what people are interested in the class, and as I find better readings just through my own research that might help us with understanding things. So this is a general syllabus and will give you a pretty good idea of how the semester will roll, but know that that will change over time. But you should look every week. I will make a live syllabus. And what we'll usually find here is a video or two about the week's topic. So kind of explaining the previous week's readings and moving into introducing the next week's readings. I'll post slides that I use for any of those lectures. The week's readings will also be posted. And you'll have 2 parts every week. And some of the weeks will look a little bit different, but in general, especially at the beginning of the semester, you're going to have a readings response based on the week's readings that you'll submit. And I'll show you where you do that. And you'll have some kind of activity that you do instead of being in class together and doing discussions or group work. I'll have you individually work on some kind of activity that should reflect back onto the more theoretical stuff you'll be reading in the readings and that we'll talk about in the lecture. So what you can do to find everything you need to complete the week is that you'll click on the link just above the live syllabus. And what you'll see here is a table of contents. And I don't know if I can expand this quite so much. It doesn't look like I can expand it here, but you'll see that there will be posted a class video, the one that we're doing right now, class slides. So what I'm using as my slides for this week. Both readings will be available here. So you'll be able to download them. Here's the other reading. You'll be able to download it here. And then you'll have space to submit each week's short responses. So the way you'll do that is you'll either write a submission directly into Blackboard, so you can click this Write Submission button, or you can upload a file, preferably DocX or PDF, but there's some different ones that are allowed you can see below here. My only request is don't write anything in the comment section unless you have something to say directly to me, not your actual submission. So use Write Submission or browse local files. And finally, on each week, what I will do is have a forum where you can create a thread to ask any questions you have on the readings that you would like me to try to answer in the coming week's explanation of the readings. And so that'll give us an opportunity to, so you don't have to email me individually, so others can see your questions, and I will know what you would particularly like me to address. So that is kind of a standard way that we will work each week, is that you will see the live syllabus, click on the link at the top to get everything you need to do to complete your work for the week. And just let's take a quick look since our syllabus downloaded here. Let's see. Many copies of this have downloaded. I wanted to show you that, as it says here, the format is asynchronous, weekly lectures, readings, reading assignments, and activities posted on Blackboard. My office hours, which are virtual, are posted here, and how to get a hold of me through email or through a Google Voice number. You can read through the course description and course objectives. And I think through our first introduction, you can see that we're working to understand and analyze sustainability frameworks and approaches and how they are applied. So I'll let you have a chance to read through this individually by yourselves rather than doing it right now in this short presentation. But I did want to show you, this is the latest syllabus. I will usually on the syllabus keep any readings updated and repost it, and just be aware that things will change a little bit. If the workload seems like it's getting a little too heavy or there's something going on, such as major changes in the COVID levels at Cal State, let's keep our fingers crossed that's not the case. We will actually make some adjustments. We can adjust in real time too. The last thing I just wanted to show you is that towards the end of the semester, we will have presentations. You'll work in panels. You don't have to watch everybody's presentation in the whole class. I'll try to put you together by theme. And then after fall break, we will have a final class that I will lead based on a short reading. It will likely not be this reading right here. It's going to be another reading that is more timely to when we're finished at the semester. And then your final paper will be due during finals week on Monday at December 6th at 5 p.m. So all of the readings for this course will be available on Blackboard. There's one short book we'll read called Replenish. And this book I will put online in its entirety, so you do not need to purchase it. If you really like the book, you can usually find it online for relatively cheap. It's not a textbook. It's a short book by Sandra Postel, who's one of my favorite writers on water. And I think they'll find it really useful. And we'll spend an entire week talking a little bit about this book. And I will read your papers on what you got out of the book, in addition to what I want to say about it and I want to bring to light. So again, this kind of states the course format is that you'll usually have 2 parts of videos, just 1 part this week, but a short recorded video of the previous ideas, concepts, and that you read about and did an activity on, then a short introductory video introducing the themes for this week. You'll have a list of readings to do by the end of the week, some prompts for a short response to the readings, and then an activity or exercise that will involve often some interactions with others in the course. So there will be a lot of writing, but most of it is low stakes, meaning that most of the writing you're going to do for this course is pass-fail. As long as there's a certain level of decent response, of thoughtfulness, of doing what you're supposed to do, you do get credit for the short writing assignments through most of the semester. You will have one 3 to 4 page essay due on Replenish that I will grade on an A to F scale. But you'll be prepared for that with many different options on what you want to write about. And then the final research paper is your big graded on an A through F scale paper. We're going to work on it all semester. So you should have plenty of time to really get it in good shape before the end of the semester. And this also should be something that you are really interested in. Even if you don't think you have any connections to sustainability and sustainable development, I promise you, you do. And sometimes it takes a little longer for some to find than others. But if all else fails, one great way to do it is to look at something in the area where you live or where you grew up and take a look at an issue that you maybe have heard of but don't really know much about. So in a couple weeks, I'll introduce this final presentation and paper much more clearly with a lot more detail and examples. So don't really worry about that for right now, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what goes into this course. There will be a midterm exam. This looks like an old copy of the syllabus. That's not what I posted, but so we're not going to do a timed syllabus. I mean, a timed midterm. We're going to have a take-home midterm that will be graded on an A to F scale. I'll talk a lot more about that before that time, and you should be very well prepared. I'm expecting good grades on the midterm, just because by that point, I feel like very confident that you will have a good idea of many of these concepts that you'll write about a little bit. So the responses are due each week by Sunday at midnight, basically 11:59 p.m. is what Blackboard lets me do. And they really do need to be on time, but if you're having trouble completing assignments on time due to external circumstances, please just talk with me as soon as possible. I know that asynchronous courses sometimes take people by surprise, If they get a little bit behind, it gets overwhelming. And so I want to make sure that as soon as you feel like you're getting off schedule or something like that, you talk to me so that we can get you back on schedule. So the grading in the class, I will post what you get, either pass fail or A through F on Blackboard, but I do calculate it in Excel at the end. So I'm not going to give you, I don't work out all the weightedness on Blackboard. So the general idea is I take all the points from your reading responses and activities in the short book essay and make that 40% of the class. I take your midterm grade and make that 25% of the class. And I take the independent research project, which involves some preparatory assignments, the presentation and the final paper, and that's 35% of your grade. So that, in a nutshell, a very quick assessment of what goes into this course. And I'll let you read these very important other parts of the syllabus that have to do with everything from accessibility services, library services, Title IX information, and of course, very importantly, an acknowledgement that we are on land that once belonged to the local tribe, and we should all consider that and pay respect to that, and that's posted there on the syllabus too. So hopefully you find that useful. It's a little bit hard to do this in a one-way communication, but I just wanted to at least give you a chance to hear my voice and see who was working with you this semester. And just sort of, again, I want to point out, this is in the Blackboard live syllabus, that your readings for this week are listed here. For those of you who aren't environmental or geography majors, if the reading is a little bit too much or over your head, you can skip pages 41 through 45. Although for you guys, I recommend reading it. It'll give you a sense of how the concepts of sustainability fits into some of your fields that you're interested in. And then this is listed several places, but what you'll do is, based on the readings, write one paragraph is perfectly fine. Two, if you're feeling it this week, a definition of sustainability that really goes beyond that basic 1987 Brundtland Commission definition. We've come a long way since then. That is not just how people think about sustainability. And I'd like you to try to not just copy anything out of those articles, but actually write something off the top of your head, like what is all included in sustainability these days, and post that on Moodle, or sorry, on Blackboard. And then the activity is taking a look at what the United Nations is doing in terms of sustainability. So you're going to click on a link that looks at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and you're going to write up some brief impressions of what you see on that website. And so that begins our first short week. And so I just want to welcome you to the class. I'm pretty excited about this semester. This is probably one of my all-time favorite classes to teach. I would prefer to teach it in person, but I actually think that doing this work independently really helps you understand some of these concepts, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to just sort of practice articulating your understanding of sustainability, sustainable development, urban sustainability, sustainable communities, all these buzzwords that we often hear and we see in the media and we throw around. But by the time you leave this course, you're going to have a really sophisticated sense of deep and strong meanings of these words. So welcome, and let's get started.